I watched my own son stand silent while his wife's hand cracked across my face in front of the entire neighborhood. They'd just sold the house I helped them buy with my retirement money, $620,000 gone, and showed up at my door with suitcases, expecting me to fix the disaster his wife had created. When I said no, she slapped me. Actually slapped me. At 64 years old, I never imagined I'd be calling the police on my own daughter-in-law, but that moment changed everything. If you want to see how this nightmare ended, stay until the end, hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far the story travels. The morning started ordinary enough. I was in my kitchen making coffee, watching cardinals fight over the feeder outside my window, when I heard car doors slam in my driveway. Not the gentle closing of someone being considerate, the aggressive bang of people who'd already made up their minds about something. I looked out and felt my stomach drop. Caleb's black SUV sat in my driveway, and he and Vanessa were pulling suitcases out of the trunk. Not overnight bags, full-sized luggage, the kind you pack when you're planning to stay. My first thought was that they were going on vacation and wanted to say goodbye. Sweet maybe, unnecessary but sweet. Then I saw Vanessa's face as she marched toward my front door, and I knew immediately that whatever was happening, it wasn't going to be pleasant. I opened the door before they could knock. "Mom," Caleb said. He looked exhausted. His eyes were hollow, dark circles underneath, like he hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk." "About what?" I kept my voice light, but my hand tightened on the doorframe. Vanessa pushed past him. "Can we come in, Evelyn, or are you going to make us stand on the porch like strangers?" Something in her tone made my jaw clench, but I stepped aside. They dragged their suitcases into my entryway, my small, peaceful entryway that suddenly felt crowded and wrong with all their chaos filling it up. "What's going on, Asans?" I asked. Caleb opened his mouth, but Vanessa cut him off. "We sold the house." For a moment, I didn't understand. "What house?" "Our house," Vanessa said, like I was stupid. "The one you helped us buy. We sold it 3 weeks ago. Closed last Friday." The words didn't make sense at first. They bounced around in my head like marbles in an empty jar. "You sold your house? The one you've lived in for 4 years? The one I gave you $40,000 toward?" "Market was good," Vanessa said breezily. "We got $620,000 for it." I felt something cold spreading through my chest. $620,000. "Yep." She said it like she was talking about winning a prize at the county fair. "And you didn't think to mention this to me? Not once in 3 weeks?" Caleb finally spoke. "Mom, it happened fast. Vanessa found a buyer and I found an opportunity," Vanessa corrected. "Someone offered cash, way over asking price. We'd have been idiots not to take it." I looked at my son, really looked at him. He couldn't meet my eyes. "Caleb, that house had my money in it, $40,000 of my retirement savings. Money your father and I spent 30 years building. Did you forget about that?" "We didn't forget," he mumbled. "Then why am I hearing about this now? Why are you standing in my house with suitcases telling me after the fact?" Vanessa sighed dramatically. "Because we need a place to stay, obviously. We sold the house, we closed the deal, but our next place isn't ready yet." "What next place?" She waved her hand vaguely. "We're figuring it out, looking at options. The market's competitive right now." I felt my blood pressure rising. "Let me understand this. You sold your house for over $500,000 and you don't have anywhere to live?" "It's temporary," Vanessa snapped. "Don't make it sound like we're homeless. You're standing in my entryway with suitcases saying you need a place to stay. What would you call it?" "Mom," Caleb said quietly, "we just need a few weeks, maybe a month, just until we find something." "A month," I looked between them. "Where's the money from the sale?" Vanessa's expression shifted slightly. Something flickered behind her eyes. "What do you mean?" $620,000. Where is it?" "That's really none of your business, Evelyn." The way she said my name, not Mom, never Mom, always Evelyn, like we were strangers at a grocery store, made something snap inside me. It became my business when you put 40,000 of my dollars into that house. It became my business when you sold it without telling me. It became my business when you showed up here expecting me to bail you out. So I'll ask again, where's the money? We had expenses, Vanessa said coldly. $600,000 worth of expenses in 3 weeks. We had debts to pay off, investments to make. It's called being financially smart, Evelyn. Not that you'd understand. I felt like I'd been punched. Excuse me? Come on. You live in this tiny house. You drive a car that's 15 years old. You clip coupons. You clearly don't understand how money works in the real world. Caleb touched her arm. Vanessa. She shook him off. What? I'm just being honest. Your mother has been sitting on her little nest egg for years, not doing anything with it, while we're out here actually trying to build wealth. She helped with the house because she wanted to feel important, and now she's acting like she owns us. The room went very quiet. I looked at my son. Is that what you think? He wouldn't look at me. Mom, it's not. Answer the question, Caleb. Do you think I gave you that money to feel important? His silence was answer enough. I felt something inside me crack. Not break completely, not yet, but definitely crack. Get out, Vanessa blinked. What? Get out of my house. Are you serious right now? Completely serious. Take your suitcases and leave. Caleb finally looked up. Mom, please, we don't have anywhere else to go. You have $620,000. Figure it out. We can't access all of it right now, he said desperately. It's tied up in... Vanessa's business needs it for... I don't care, I said. My voice was shaking, but I kept going. You sold a house that had my retirement money in it. You didn't tell me. You didn't ask me. You didn't even have the decency to pay me back. And now you're standing here insulting me in my own home, expecting me to what? Just open my door and let you take over my life too? Vanessa's face twisted into something ugly. You're really going to do this? Turn away your own son? I'm turning away the woman who just told me I'm too stupid to understand money, and I'm turning away the son who let her say it. This is unbelievable, Vanessa hissed. She grabbed her suitcase handle. Caleb, let's go. Your mother's made herself perfectly clear. But she didn't head toward the door. Instead, she turned back to me, and I saw something dangerous in her expression. You know what your problem is, Evelyn? You're jealous. You've always been jealous of me. Jealous that your son chose someone successful, someone beautiful, someone who actually has ambition, instead of just settling for a mediocre little life. Vanessa, stop, Caleb said weakly. No, she needs to hear this. She's been passive-aggressive since the day we got engaged. Little comments about my career, my spending, my friends, acting like she's so concerned when really she just can't stand that Caleb has a life that doesn't revolve around her anymore. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I have never been anything but welcoming to you. You've tolerated me. There's a difference, and now, when we actually need help, you're showing your true colors. What kind of mother turns away her child? The kind whose child steals from her and then asks for more. The word steals hung in the air like smoke. Vanessa's face went red. We didn't steal anything. That money was a gift. It was a down payment contribution with the understanding that you'd build equity in the house. Equity that would eventually be returned to me if you sold. We had an agreement. We had nothing in writing. Because you were family, because I trusted you. Well, that was stupid, Vanessa said flatly. You don't give away $40,000 on a handshake. That's not how the real world works. Something in me shifted. Not the crack getting wider, something else, something harder. You're right, I said quietly. I was stupid. I trusted you. I trusted my son. I won't make that mistake again. Caleb looked panicked. Mom, we can work this out. We can... No, I said, we can't, because you're not even sorry, are you? You're not sorry you sold the house. You're not sorry you kept it secret. You're not sorry you spent all the money. You're just sorry I won't let you crash here and continue whatever disaster you're creating. It's not a disaster, Vanessa snapped. We're building something, an empire. And when it pays off, you'll feel really stupid for acting like this. What empire? What are you building? My boutique consulting business. I told you about it. I'm helping small businesses optimize their retail strategies. The investment potential is enormous. I remembered her mentioning something months ago, but it had been vague. Vanessa was always vague about her work, and that requires $600,000. Startup capital, office space, marketing, technology infrastructure. You wouldn't understand the overhead. Try me. She rolled her eyes. Look, I don't have time to explain basic business economics to someone who's never run anything more complicated than a lemonade stand. The point is, we needed the house money for the business, and we used it. End of story. And now you have no house and no income and no backup plan. We have a plan. The plan is that we stay with you until the business gets off the ground and we can afford our next place. I almost laughed. You're insane if you think that's happening. So you're just going to, what, let your son be homeless? He's not homeless. He's standing in a house he chose to sell, holding money he chose to spend, facing consequences he chose to create. Those are called choices, Vanessa, and they're not my responsibility. She stepped closer to me, close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume, see the perfect makeup that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. You're going to regret this, Evelyn. When Caleb and I are successful, when we're living in a mansion and driving luxury cars, you're going to regret treating us like this. And don't come crawling back then, because we'll remember. I'll take that risk. Something in her eyes went cold, really cold, and then before I could process what was happening, her hand flew up and cracked across my face. The slap was so sudden, so shocking, that I actually stumbled backward. My cheek burned, my ear rang. I stood there, stunned, while Vanessa's handprint throbbed on my skin. Caleb grabbed her arm. "What the hell are you doing?" She jerked away from him. She deserved it, standing there all high and mighty, judging us, when she's just a bitter old woman who can't accept that her son grew up. I touched my face. My hand came away, and I expected blood, but there was nothing, just heat and pain, and the complete unreality of what had just happened. "Get out," I whispered. "Oh, we're leaving," Vanessa said. She grabbed her suitcase and stormed toward the door. But she didn't leave. Instead, she flung it open and stepped onto my front porch, and then she started screaming. "Everyone hear this?" Her voice carried across the entire street. Neighbors' heads turned. Mrs. Chen stopped watering her roses. The Morrison kids froze on their bikes. Evelyn Harper just kicked her own son out on the street, her own child, because she's too selfish to help her own family. "Vanessa, stop," Caleb begged from inside the house. "No, everyone should know what kind of person she is." Vanessa's voice was shrill, theatrical. She was performing. "We came here for help and she slapped me. She attacked me just because we asked to stay a few nights." My face still burned where she'd hit me, but she was out there telling the neighborhood I'd attacked her. I stepped onto the porch. That's not what happened. "Don't come near me." Vanessa backed down the steps dramatically, like I was chasing her with a weapon. "Everyone saw it. She's violent. She's unstable." "Nobody saw anything, because nothing happened except you hitting me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady even though I was shaking. "You're lying," Vanessa shrieked. "You're a liar and a terrible mother, and I hope you're happy knowing your son will be sleeping in his car tonight because of you." Mrs. Chen was walking toward us. So was Jim Morrison from across the street. I saw curtains moving in windows, phones appearing. People were watching. Recording, probably. Caleb finally came outside. "Vanessa, get in the car, please." "Why? So she can win? So she can stand there and play the victim when she's the one destroying this family?" "You hit me," I said again, my voice cracked. "In front of my son, in my own house, you hit me." "Prove it," Vanessa spat. Mrs. Chen reached us. "Evelyn, are you all right?" "She's fine," Vanessa snapped. "She's just trying to make me look bad because she can't handle the fact that Caleb chose me over her." "I saw you slap her," Mrs. Chen said quietly. "Through the window. Your front door was open." Vanessa's face went pale, just for a second before the anger came back. "You saw nothing. You're just another bitter old woman who—" "I'm calling the police," I heard myself say. Everyone froze. What? Vanessa's voice was suddenly smaller. I'm calling the police. You assaulted me in my home, in front of witnesses. I'm calling the police. Caleb looked like he might throw up. Mom, don't. Please don't. Why not? I was surprised by how calm I sounded. She hit me. That's assault. That's illegal. Why shouldn't I call the police? Because I'm your family, Vanessa said, and for the first time I heard fear under the anger. No, I said. You're the woman who married my son. You're the woman who took my money, insulted me, hit me, and then screamed lies about me to my neighbors. You're not my family. You're just someone who's about to learn that actions have consequences. I went inside, picked up my phone, and dialed 911. Through the open door, I could hear Vanessa's voice changing, becoming desperate. Caleb, stop her. Do something. She can't do this. Make her stop. But Caleb didn't move. He just stood there on my lawn, holding a suitcase, looking lost. The dispatcher answered, 911, what's your emergency? I'd like to report an assault, I said. My voice was steady now, clear. A woman hit me in my home. I have witnesses. I'd like to press charges. By the time I gave them my address and hung up, Vanessa was crying. Not real tears, I could tell the difference, but theatrical ones, the kind designed to manipulate. She clutched Caleb's arm. Baby, we need to go, right now, before she ruins everything. It's too late, I said from the doorway. They're already coming. Jim Morrison was on his porch now, arms crossed, watching. Mrs. Chen stood in my yard like a sentinel. 2 other neighbors had come out. Everyone had seen. Everyone knew. Vanessa's face twisted with rage again. You're going to regret this, you vindictive bitch. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to take everything you have. I'm going to make your life hell. You already tried, I said. Didn't work. The police arrived 7 minutes later. 2 officers, 1 male, 1 female. They separated us, Vanessa and Caleb by their car, me on my porch with Mrs. Chen. The female officer took my statement while the male officer talked to them. I told her everything. The house sale, the money, Vanessa's insults, the slap, the scene on the lawn. Mrs. Chen corroborated it all. She'd seen the slap through my open door. She'd heard the screaming. The officer looked at my face. Your cheek is red. Do you want medical attention? No, I just want her charged. You're sure you want to press charges? If this is a family matter, sometimes, I'm sure. She nodded, went to confer with her partner. I watched Vanessa's face as they talked to her. Watched it go from angry to scared to calculating to defiant to scared again. The male officer came back to me. Ma'am, we're going to arrest Mrs. Harper for simple assault. You'll need to come to the station tomorrow to give a formal statement, and there'll be a court date set. Are you comfortable with that process? Yes. They put handcuffs on Vanessa, actual handcuffs. She started screaming again, fighting against them, yelling about police brutality and false arrest, and her lawyer. The female officer read her rights in a bored voice that suggested she'd done this 1,000 times before. Caleb looked at me across the yard. His face was white. Mom, go with her, I said. You made your choice. I didn't. It wasn't supposed to. Go with her. He went. I watched them drive away. Vanessa in the police car, Caleb following behind in their SUV, suitcases still in my entryway. The neighbors slowly dispersed, heading back to their houses with backward glances and whispered conversations. Mrs. Chen squeezed my hand. You did the right thing. Did I? Yes. Sometimes the right thing feels terrible, but you still did it. After she left, I went inside and locked the door. Sat down at my kitchen table. Looked at my hands. They were shaking now. The adrenaline finally wearing off. I'd just had my daughter-in-law arrested. I'd just sent my son away. I'd just blown up what was left of our family. And somewhere deep inside, underneath the shock and the pain and the fear, I felt something else, relief. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying it all, the slap, the screaming. Vanessa's face as they put her in handcuffs. Caleb's expression, betrayed, confused, but not surprised. Not really, like part of him had known this was coming. Around midnight, I got up and made tea. Sat in my dark kitchen with the warm cup between my hands. That's when I started thinking clearly about the money. $40,000. I'd given it to them 4 years ago for the down payment. They'd signed papers at closing, papers that had my name on them, my money documented. When they sold the house, that equity should have been returned to me. At minimum, my $40,000, probably more given how much the house had appreciated. But they'd kept it all, spent it, and according to Vanessa, spent it in 3 weeks, $620,000 in 3 weeks. That wasn't normal spending. That wasn't startup costs for a boutique consulting business. That was something else, something wrong. I opened my laptop and started searching. Vanessa's business, what was it called? She'd mentioned a name once, Lux Consulting, Elite Strategies, something pretentious. I couldn't find anything. No website, no social media presence, no business registration in the state database. I searched her personal social media instead. Found her Instagram. It was set to public. Of course it was. Vanessa loved attention. I scrolled through photos from the past month. Designer handbags, new car, a Mercedes, luxury spa day, weekend trip to Miami, champagne brunch at some rooftop restaurant, another handbag, shoes that probably cost more than my mortgage payment, a watch, more champagne, another trip, this time to Los Angeles. Every photo was tagged with locations, brands, hashtags, living my best life, blessed, thriving, success looks good on me. I felt sick. This was where the money went. Not investments, not a business, just Vanessa, spending and spending and spending, documenting every purchase like it was an achievement. I kept scrolling, went back further to before the house sold. The post changed, less frequent, more complaints, subtle digs about struggling and building an empire is hard, and sacrifices. Posts about Caleb working overtime, posts about when your partner doesn't understand your vision. Then, 3 weeks ago, everything changed. Suddenly she was on a shopping spree, posting 3 times a day, everything luxury brands and first-class travel and 5-star hotels. The timing was exact. They'd closed on the house and Vanessa had immediately started burning through the money. I took screenshots. I didn't know why exactly, just instinct. Something told me I'd need evidence later. Then I found something that made my blood run cold, a photo from a week ago. Vanessa at a restaurant leaning against a man I'd never seen before, older, maybe 50, wearing an expensive suit. The caption, dinner with my favorite business partner. Big things coming. But the way she was leaning against him wasn't business. The way his hand rested on her waist wasn't business. I clicked on the comments. Most were the usual generic praise from strangers, but one comment from an account with no profile picture said, "Tell your husband I said hi." Vanessa had replied, "Don't be jealous." I felt cold all over. I clicked on the man's tagged profile, Marcus something. His account was private, but his profile picture showed the same man from Vanessa's photo. His bio said, CEO, father, Miami-based. Father. I searched his name with Miami and CEO. Found a business profile. Marcus Chen, founder of some investment firm. Found his company website. There was a photo of him with his wife and 3 kids. His wife. I sat back in my chair staring at the screen. Vanessa was having an affair with a married man, and based on the timeline of her post, she'd been seeing him for months. Maybe the entire time she was married to Caleb. Was that where some of the money went? Supporting this double life? I felt rage building in my chest. Not just for me, for Caleb. My son had worked himself to exhaustion for years, taken overtime shifts, skipped vacations. Also, Vanessa could build her business, and she'd been using his sacrifice to fund an affair. I took more screenshots, saved everything. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I created a fake Instagram account and sent a message to Marcus Chen's wife. Your husband is having an affair with Vanessa Harper. Check her Instagram. They've been together for months. I thought you should know. I sent it before I could change my mind. Then I closed the laptop and sat in the dark, shaking. Tomorrow I was calling a lawyer. The next morning I drove to the police station and gave my formal statement. The officer who took it was professional, efficient. Told me that Vanessa had been released on bail around 2 a.m., that the court date would be set within 30 days, that I'd be notified by mail. Has she contacted you since the incident? The officer asked. No. If she does, don't engage. Document everything. If she shows up at your property, call us immediately. The judge will likely issue a no-contact order, but until then, it's your responsibility to maintain distance. I nodded. From the station, I drove to Martin Cole's office. Martin had handled my estate planning 5 years ago, after my husband died. He was in his 60s, sharp as a knife, with a reputation for winning cases other lawyers wouldn't touch. His secretary fit me in between appointments. I sat in his office with its leather chairs and wall of law books and told him everything. He listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes. When I finished, he sat back. Let me make sure I understand. You gave them $40,000 toward the house purchase 4 years ago. This was documented in the closing papers. Yes, my name is on the documents as providing down payment assistance. And when they sold the house, they kept all the proceeds without returning your contribution or any equity share. Yes. Did you have a written agreement specifying repayment terms? No, it was understood, family agreement. He nodded. Verbal contracts are harder to enforce, but not impossible, especially with documentation. The closing papers are key. They prove your financial contribution. Now, the assault charge is separate, criminal rather than civil, but it gives us leverage. The court doesn't look favorably on someone who commits assault, while essentially committing financial fraud. Can we sue them? Absolutely. For return of your initial investment at minimum, potentially more depending on how much equity existed in the home. What was the original purchase price? $310,000. They put down $55,000 total, my 40, their 15, and sold for $620. So they realized over $300,000 in profit, not counting principal pay down over 4 years. You're entitled to a proportional share based on your percentage of the down payment. That's roughly 73% of the down payment, which translates to substantial equity. He did some quick calculations. Conservative estimate, you're owed minimum $60,000, possibly as much as $90,000 depending on how we argue the equity split. My head spun. $90,000? That's if we push for full proportional equity based on your down payment percentage. The initial $40,000 is guaranteed. That's straightforward return of contribution. The equity share is more complex legally, but I've won similar cases. The fact that they didn't inform you of the sale, didn't offer repayment, and then showed up demanding housing suggests intent to defraud. That strengthens our position considerably. How long will this take? Civil suits move slowly, 6 months minimum, possibly a year, but we can file immediately, and I'd also recommend requesting a temporary restraining order given the assault. It'll prevent further contact or harassment during the legal process. Do it, I said, all of it. He smiled slightly. I'll draw up the papers. I'll need copies of all documentation, the closing papers, any correspondence about the money, anything related to the house purchase or sale. And I'll need a retainer. We discussed fees. It wasn't cheap, but I didn't care. This wasn't about the money anymore. Not really. It was about standing up, about not letting them take everything and walk away. I gave him the retainer check and left. In my car, I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Caleb, 2 voicemails. I listened to the first one. Mom, please call me back. We need to talk about what happened. Vanessa she's really upset. She spent the night in jail, Mom. In jail because of you. And now you're suing us. The lawyer just called. You're actually suing your own son. How could you do this? I know you're angry, but this is too far. This is family. Call me back, please. His voice was desperate, pleading, but also accusatory, like I was the villain. I deleted both voicemails without listening to the second one. That afternoon, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Caleb standing there alone. He looked awful, unshaven, rumpled clothes, eyes red. I didn't open the door. Mom, I know you're in there. Please, I just want to talk. I stayed silent. Mom, please, I'm sorry about what happened. Vanessa is sorry too. She shouldn't have hit you. She knows that. She's under a lot of stress with the business and everything, but that's no excuse. She wants to apologize. The business that doesn't exist, I thought. The business that's actually a shopping addiction and an affair. We can work this out, Caleb continued. We don't need lawyers and court dates. We're family. Can't we just talk about this like adults? I walked to the door but didn't open it. Spoke through the wood. Did you tell her about the money? Silence. When you got married, did you tell Vanessa about the $40,000 I gave you? Did you explain it was a loan, not a gift? More silence. Answer me, Caleb. I told her you helped with the down payment. Did you tell her it needed to be paid back? It wasn't exactly... You never said... Yes, I did, multiple times. I said I was helping you with the down payment so you could build equity, and when you sold eventually, I'd get my contribution back. I said that explicitly. Did you tell Vanessa that? His voice was smaller. She thought it was a gift, because you let her think that. I didn't want to. It made things complicated. So you lied to your wife about owing your mother $60,000, and now you're both surprised I want it back. The number had grown in my head, averaging Martin's estimates. We don't have it, Mom. The money's invested, tied up. We can't just... In what? Vanessa's business that doesn't exist. The consulting firm with no website, no clients, no business registration? He went quiet. I looked it up, Caleb. There is no business. There's just your wife spending money like water while you work yourself to death. You don't understand? Then explain it to me. Explain where $600,000 went in 3 weeks. Explain the luxury cars and the designer bags and the trips to Miami. Explain the photos with Marcus Chen. I heard him suck in a breath. You didn't know about that either, did you? Mom, don't. She's having an affair, Caleb, with a married man for months probably, and you've been paying for it. That's not... She said he's a business partner. Business partners don't touch each other's waists in photos. Business partners' wives don't get anonymous messages warning them about affairs. Wake up. I heard something that might have been a sob. I'm sorry, I said and meant it. I'm sorry you're in this situation. I'm sorry she did this to you. But I'm not dropping the lawsuit, and I'm not letting either of you back in my life until this is resolved. You need to figure out what you're going to do, because I'm done being your safety net while she destroys both of you. Mom, please, go home, Caleb, or wherever it is you're living now, but don't come back here. I walked away from the door, heard him standing there for another minute before finally leaving, watched through the window as he sat in his car for a long time, head in his hands, before driving away. That night, I got a Facebook message from a woman named Jennifer Chen. The profile picture showed an elegant Asian woman with 3 kids. Thank you for telling me, the message read. I've suspected for a while. My lawyer will be contacting you. We may need your testimony if this goes to divorce court. Marcus has been moving money around, and Vanessa Harper is likely one of the places it went. If you're suing her, my attorney would like to speak with yours. We may be able to help each other. I replied, happy to cooperate. Then I forwarded her contact information to Martin Cole. The pieces were falling into place, not just my case, something bigger. Vanessa had been playing multiple people, burning through multiple sources of money. Mine, Caleb's, Marcus Chen's, probably others. And now all of us were comparing notes. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. The court date for the assault charge came first. I sat in the courtroom with Mrs. Chen, who'd agreed to testify. Vanessa showed up with an expensive lawyer, probably paid for with my money, wearing a conservative dress and minimal makeup, playing the respectable wife. Her lawyer argued that it was a domestic dispute that escalated, that Vanessa had been emotionally distraught and acted out of character. He painted me as vindictive, using the legal system to punish my daughter-in-law for a minor family disagreement. The prosecutor presented Mrs. Chen's testimony. showed photos of my face taken that day, the red mark still visible, played body camera footage from the police officers who'd arrested Vanessa. You could hear her screaming threats, see her fighting against the handcuffs. The judge listened to everything, expressionless. Then he looked at Vanessa. Mrs. Harper, you struck your mother-in-law in her own home following a dispute about money. Is that correct? It was a moment of extreme emotion, Your Honor. I've apologized. Have you? She blinked. Yes, I've tried to. Mrs. Harper struck you after this incident? The judge asked me. No, Your Honor. She hasn't contacted me at all. He nodded. So the apology exists in theory, but not in practice. He looked back at Vanessa. Mrs. Harper, assault is assault regardless of family relationship or emotional state. In fact, the domestic nature of this incident makes it more concerning, not less. I'm finding you guilty of simple assault. You're sentenced to 6 months probation, mandatory anger management classes, and I'm issuing a 1-year restraining order. You're not to contact Mrs. Harper directly or indirectly. You're not to come within 500 feet of her residence, and any violation will result in immediate arrest. Vanessa's lawyer started to object, but the judge cut him off. My ruling stands. Next case. Outside the courtroom, Vanessa's mask slipped. She looked at me with pure hatred. Didn't say anything, couldn't with the restraining order, but her expression said everything. Caleb wasn't there. He'd stopped calling after that day at my door. The civil lawsuit moved slower, just like Martin had warned. Discovery phase. Depositions. Mountains of paperwork. But Martin was good. He found everything. The closing documents proving my $40,000 contribution. Bank records showing the house sale proceeds. Credit card statements showing Vanessa's spending spree. And then Jennifer Chen's lawyer got involved. Turned out, Marcus Chen had given Vanessa nearly $200,000 over the past year, money he'd embezzled from his company and his marital assets. Jennifer was divorcing him and going after every penny. Vanessa was named in the divorce proceedings as having received marital assets. Suddenly, Vanessa wasn't just fighting my lawsuit. She was fighting fraud investigations, embezzlement charges, and being named as a co-conspirator in Marcus Chen's financial crimes. The walls were closing in. 6 months after that morning in my driveway, I got a call from Martine. She wants to settle. What are the terms? Full repayment of your initial $40,000 plus an additional $30,000 representing your equity share. Total $70,000. Payment plan over 2 years. She keeps the criminal charges off her record if she complies with all terms. Where will she get $70,000? That's not our concern, but my understanding is that Marcus Chen is settling his divorce, and part of that settlement involves him recovering funds from Vanessa. She's essentially being forced to liquidate everything, the car, the designer goods, probably some of the money still in account somewhere. She's desperate to make this go away before the fraud investigation expands. And Caleb? He's agreed to co-sign the settlement as her spouse. He's not contesting your claim. I closed my eyes. Fine, I'll take the settlement. You could push for more. No, I just want it done. The settlement was finalized 3 weeks later. Vanessa would pay me $70,000 over 24 months. If she missed a payment, the full amount became immediately due and I could pursue further legal action. I never saw her again after that courtroom. Never spoke to her. The restraining order expired eventually, but by then she was long gone. I heard from neighbors that she'd moved out of state, back to wherever she came from originally, or maybe somewhere new where no one knew her story. But Caleb was different. 3 months after the settlement, he showed up at my door, not demanding or desperate this time, just quiet. I'm not here to fight, he said through the screen door. I just wanted you to know I got divorced. It's final now. I let him in this time. We sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where this had all started, and he told me everything. how he'd believed Vanessa's lies about the business, how he'd worked 90-hour weeks to support her dreams, how he'd ignored the warning signs because he'd been in love with the woman he thought she was, not the woman she actually was. "I'm paying back the money," he said, "not just what the settlement says, everything. I got a second job. I'm living in a studio apartment. Every extra dollar goes towards you." "Caleb, I need to do this, Mom. I need to make it right." He looked so much older than he had a year ago, tired, worn down, but also clearer somehow, like he'd finally woken up. "I'm so sorry," he said and started crying. "I'm so sorry for everything, for letting her treat you that way, for not standing up for you, for being so stupid." I reached across the table and took his hand. "You weren't stupid. You were in love with the wrong person. That happens. I should have protected you. You should have, but you didn't, and now you're here trying to make it right. That counts for something." We talked for hours that day, really talked for the first time in years. He told me about the marriage, about the slow realization that something was wrong, about the final confrontation when he discovered the affair and the debt and all of it. "She blamed you for everything," he said you'd poisoned me against her, that you destroyed our marriage because you were jealous. I almost believed her. What changed? Her lawyer showed me the financial records during the divorce, every purchase, every trip, every dollar, and I realized I'd been working myself to death while she was living like a millionaire, with money that wasn't even hers. Some of it was yours, some was Marcus Chen's. She was just taking from everyone and giving nothing back except lies. "I'm sorry you went through that. I'm sorry I put you through it." We sat in silence for a while. "Can I ask you something?" he said finally. "Of course. When you called the police that day, did you know it would end like this, that she'd be gone and we'd be divorced and everything would fall apart?" I thought about it. "No, I just knew I couldn't let her hit me and get away with it. I couldn't let her stand on my lawn and lie about me and face no consequences. Everything else just followed." He nodded. "I'm glad you called them. I should have stopped her myself, but I'm glad you did it." "Me too." He started visiting regularly after that, once a month, then twice, then weekly. Helped with yard work, fix things around the house. We'd have dinner and talk about normal things, work, weather, the neighbors. And on the first of every month, he'd bring a check, more than the settlement required, his way of saying what he couldn't say in words. I forgave him. Not immediately, forgiveness doesn't work like that. But gradually, as I watched him try to become better, I felt the anger fade. He was my son. He'd made mistakes, but he was trying to fix them. That was enough. The first payment arrived exactly on schedule, $3,500, half from the settlement, half from Caleb's own pocket. He handed me the check in my kitchen on a Tuesday morning, and I saw his hands were calloused now, rough from whatever second job he'd taken. "You don't have to pay extra," I told him. "Yes, I do." I didn't argue. Some debts aren't just financial. But here's what nobody tells you about winning. It doesn't feel like winning. I had my money coming back. I had my son back, sort of. Vanessa was gone. The neighborhood had stopped whispering. Everything should have felt resolved. Instead, I kept waking up at 3 in the morning replaying that slap, feeling the sting, hearing her voice screaming lies to the street, seeing Caleb's face as he stood there and did nothing. Trauma doesn't care about courtroom victories. I started going to therapy, not because anyone suggested it, because I couldn't sleep and food didn't taste right, and every time someone raised their voice, even on TV, my heart would start hammering. My therapist, Dr. Linda Morrison, no relation to my neighbor Jim, told me I had symptoms of PTSD. From one slap, I asked. From betrayal, she corrected. From having your safety violated in your own home by someone you trusted. The physical assault was just the match that lit years of accumulated hurt. She wasn't wrong, because the more I thought about it, the more I realized Vanessa had been cruel for years. Little comments about my house being cozy in a tone that meant small. Suggestions that I deserved to treat myself when I mentioned saving money, like frugality, was pathetic. The way she'd redirect every conversation away from me toward herself. How she'd roll her eyes when Caleb mentioned visiting me. I'd ignored it all because I wanted Caleb to be happy. I'd swallowed every insult, every slight, every dismissive gesture, because speaking up would have made me the difficult mother-in-law. And where had that gotten me? Assaulted in my own home while my son watched. Dr. Morrison helped me understand something crucial. Being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cruel. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their destruction. 3 months into therapy, I felt strong enough to ask Caleb the question that had been eating at me. We were in my backyard. He was fixing my fence. One of the posts had rotted through while I weeded the garden. Normal, domestic, safe. "Why didn't you stop her?" I asked. His hammer paused mid-swing. "What?" "That day, when she hit me, why didn't you stop her?" He set the hammer down carefully, stared at the fence post like it held answers. "I don't know." "That's not good enough, Caleb." I was in shock. It happened so fast. It happened fast, and then you watched her scream at me on the lawn for 5 minutes. You had time. Why didn't you tell her to stop? Why didn't you stand between us? Why didn't you get her out of there before the police came? His shoulders hunched. Because part of me thought you deserved it. The words hung in the air like smoke. "Explain that," I said quietly. "Not the hit. I didn't think you deserved to be hit. But the anger behind it. I thought maybe you were being too harsh. We'd just lost everything and you turned us away and Vanessa was upset and I thought..." He ran his hand through his hair. "I thought you were choosing money over family. I was choosing self-preservation over being used. I know that now, but in the moment I believed her version, that you were punishing us, that you were bitter and vindictive and looking for reasons to reject her. She'd been telling me that story for years, and I'd half believed it, and when you said no, it felt like proof. I pulled a weed so hard the roots sprayed dirt. So you let her hit me because you thought I deserved to be punished. No, I let her hit you because I was a coward who couldn't see past his own wife's manipulation." He turned to face me fully. His eyes were red. "Do you know what the worst part is? Even after the slap, even after the police came, part of me was still making excuses for her, still thinking maybe you'd overreacted by pressing charges. It wasn't until the divorce lawyer showed me the bank statements that I finally saw the truth. And by then, I'd already chosen her over you 1,000 times." "Yes," I said, "you did. I don't know how to fix that." "You can't fix it. You can just not do it again with anyone, ever." He nodded slowly, picked up the hammer, went back to the fence. We didn't talk about it again that day, but something shifted, like lancing a wound, painful but necessary for healing. The payments kept coming, month after month, sometimes Caleb's check, sometimes Vanessa's through her lawyer. Her payments were always exactly the settlement amount, down to the penny. No extra, no note. Just legal obligation fulfilled. I deposited them without looking too closely. Blood money, my mother would have called it. But money doesn't have morals. It's just a tool for survival, and I was surviving. Then, 6 months into the payment plan, Vanessa's check bounced. Martin called me. "Her account has insufficient funds. We can pursue legal action immediately. The settlement agreement specified that any missed payment voids the schedule and makes the full balance due." "How much does she still owe?" "About $48,000. I sat with that number. $48,000 that Vanessa couldn't pay because she'd already burned through everything. The Marcus Chen settlement, the sale of her car, whatever she'd gotten from pawning her designer goods. All gone. "What happens if we pursue legal action?" I asked. "We can garnish wages if she's employed, put liens on property if she has any. But Mrs. Harper, I've been doing some research and I don't think you're going to get much. Vanessa Harper has essentially gone underground. She's moved 4 times in 6 months, working cash jobs, no fixed address. She's judgment proof. Even if we win in court, there's nothing to collect. So she just gets away with it." "Not gets away with it. She's living in a car, according to my investigator, sleeping on friends' couches. Her credit is destroyed. Marcus Chen's wife sued her successfully for return of marital assets. She lost that judgment too. Vanessa Harper's life is effectively over in any conventional sense. She just doesn't have money to give you. I thought about that. Vanessa, who'd lived for luxury and status and Instagram photos, now homeless and broke. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part just felt tired. What do you recommend? We can keep the judgment active. If she ever gets assets again, inheritance, lottery, settlement from something else, we can claim them. But actively pursuing her now, it'll cost you more in legal fees than you'd recover. So I write off $48,000. You already recovered $70,000 that you wouldn't have gotten without the lawsuit. You won, Mrs. Harper. Not completely, but substantially. Sometimes that's all there is. I told him to keep the judgment active, but stop active pursuit. He said he'd file the paperwork. That night I told Caleb about the bounced check. His reaction surprised me. He wasn't angry, he just nodded like he'd expected it. She's broke, he said. Her new boyfriend kicked her out last month. She called me crying, violated the restraining order actually, but I didn't report it. She wanted money, said she'd pay me back when she got on her feet. Did you give her any? No, he said it firmly. I told her I'm done enabling her, that she made her choices and now she gets to live with them. She called me some names and hung up. New boyfriend? Some guy she met online. Told him she was a successful business consultant who'd had some temporary setbacks. He believed her for about 3 months before he figured out the truth. Kicked her out. Now she's looking for the next mark. You sound very calm about this. I am calm. You know why? Because it's not my problem anymore. For years, every crisis Vanessa had became my emergency. Every bad decision she made became my responsibility to fix, and I realize now that I was never helping her. I was just enabling her to keep making worse and worse choices. The kindest thing I ever did for her was divorce her and stop being her safety net. I stared at my son. When had he gotten so wise? Therapy, I guessed. Yeah, Dr. Patel. He's helped me understand that love without boundaries isn't love, it's self-destruction, and that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You can only save yourself and hope they eventually figure it out. I'm proud of you, I said. He looked surprised. For what? For learning, for growing, for becoming someone your father would be proud of. His eyes got wet. We didn't hug, we'd never been a huggy family, but he reached across the table and squeezed my hand. That was enough. Life settled into a new rhythm. Caleb visited every week. The checks from Vanessa stopped, but Caleb's continued. He'd increased his payments to cover the shortfall, working himself ragged to make up for her default. I told him to stop. He refused. Mom, I'm the one who let her spend your money. I signed the papers for the house sale. I knew about your contribution and I let her convince me it was a gift. This debt is mine as much as hers, more than hers. She was a liar and a thief, but I was her accomplice. Let me fix it. So I let him, because he needed to fix it, not for me, but for himself. Then one Tuesday, almost a year after the settlement, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Harper, this is Detective Sarah Chen with the Riverside County Fraud Division. My stomach dropped. What's wrong? Is it Caleb? No, ma'am, this is about Vanessa Harper. She listed you as a previous address in some paperwork, and we're trying to locate her for questioning. When did you last have contact with her? Not since the assault case over a year ago. Why? She's wanted for questioning in connection with a fraud scheme, multiple victims. She's been running romance scams online, meeting men, establishing relationships, getting them to invest in fake business opportunities, then disappearing with the money. Of course she was. How many victims? 7 that we know of, possibly more. Total damages around $300,000. I closed my eyes. Is there anything you need from me? Just contact information if you have it, and if she reaches out, let us know immediately. Don't engage with her directly. I gave them what little I had, her old phone number, her last known address, her lawyer's contact info. The detective thanked me and hung up. I sat with my phone in my hand, thinking about 7 men who'd believed Vanessa's lies, who'd given her money, trust, maybe even love, who were now dealing with the aftermath of her destruction. Welcome to the club, I thought bitterly. I didn't tell Caleb immediately. I wanted to process it first, figure out how I felt, and what I realized was this: I wasn't surprised, not even a little bit, because people like Vanessa don't change, they just find new victims. When I finally told Caleb a few days later, his reaction was even calmer than mine. I hope they catch her, he said. Not because I hate her, I don't hate her anymore. I hope they catch her, so maybe she'll finally face real consequences and have to change. Prison might actually be the best thing that could happen to her. That's a very mature perspective. It's a tired perspective. I spent years being angry at her, being angry at myself, being angry at you, honestly, for seeing through her when I couldn't. But anger is exhausting and I don't have energy for it anymore. I just want to move forward. Are you dating anyone? He laughed. No, my therapist says I need to work on myself before I inflict my issues on someone else. Maybe in another year or 2. Good plan. We were sitting on my back porch watching the sunset. It was peaceful, normal, the kind of evening I dreamed about when Caleb was young. Us together, comfortable, no tension or manipulation between us. Can I ask you something? He said. Always. Do you forgive me? I'd been waiting for this question, dreading it honestly because I didn't know my answer. I'm working on it, I said finally. I forgive you for being deceived, for being manipulated, for being in love with someone who didn't deserve it. Those things aren't really your fault. But I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive you for standing there while she hit me, for not protecting me, for choosing her over me in that moment, that part. That's going to take more time. He nodded, didn't argue, didn't make excuses, just accepted it. I understand, and I'll keep working to earn it back. I know you will. We sat in silence for a while. You know what's weird? He said eventually. I used to think Vanessa was the best thing that ever happened to me. Beautiful, ambitious, exciting. Everything felt bigger and more important when I was with her. Life was never boring. And now? Now I realize that's not love, that's chaos. Real love is boring, it's predictable. It's sitting on a porch watching the sunset with someone who's not trying to manipulate you or use you or turn you into someone else. Real love is safe. When did you get so wise? When I lost everything and had to rebuild from scratch. Turns out hitting rock bottom is very educational. He was right about that. I'd learned the same lesson in my own way. 2 months later, Detective Chen called again. We arrested Vanessa Harper this morning. She's being held without bail pending trial. Charges include wire fraud, identity theft, and grand larceny. Given the number of victims and the amount stolen, she's looking at significant prison time if convicted. How long? 10 to 15 years, possibly. The prosecutor is taking this seriously. She showed no remorse during questioning, actually tried to claim all the men gave her money willingly as gifts. But we have emails, texts, fake business documents she created. It's a strong case. What happens to the money she owes me? The civil judgment stays active, but I'll be honest, Mrs. Harper, you're in line behind a lot of other creditors. The chances of you recovering the balance are slim. I figured. For what it's worth, you did the right thing by pressing charges back when she assaulted you. That assault conviction is helping us establish a pattern of behavior. It's part of the evidence showing she's dangerous and manipulative. So thank you for standing up to her. A lot of victims don't. After we hung up, I sat with that for a long time. My lawsuit, my police report, my refusal to let her get away with hitting me. It had all led to this. Not directly, but it was part of the chain. I'd been the first person to say no to Vanessa and make it stick, to demand consequences, to refuse to let her charm and manipulation override basic accountability. And maybe, just maybe, that had saved some future victims, because she'd been stopped now instead of being allowed to continue for another decade. I told Caleb that night. He took the news quietly, processing it in that careful way he'd developed. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Part of me still remembers being in love with her, remembers the woman I thought she was, and that person wouldn't have done any of this. But that person never existed. She was always this. I just couldn't see it. You were young. You wanted to believe in her. I was stupid. Let's call it what it was. You were human. We all want to believe in the people we love." He smiled sadly. "When did you figure out she was toxic?" I thought about it. Honestly, the second time I met her. We went to lunch, just the two of us, so I could get to know her. And she spent the entire meal talking about herself. Every topic I tried to bring up, she'd redirect back to her life, her problems, her ambitions. And when the check came, she let me pay while complaining that she'd just bought expensive shoes. That's when I knew. "Why didn't you say something? Would you have listened?" "No," he admitted. "I would have thought you were being judgmental. I would have made excuses for her. I would have chosen her over you, which is exactly what I did anyway. People have to learn some lessons themselves. I couldn't protect you from Vanessa any more than you can protect an adult child from their own bad choices. I could only be there when it fell apart. You were there, even after everything you were there. That's more than I deserved. You're my son. That doesn't come with conditions. Mom, everything comes with conditions. You just made yours reasonable. Accountability, honesty, actually trying to change. Those aren't unreasonable conditions. Those are basic human decency. When did you get so smart?" "When I spent a year watching you set boundaries and refused to budge and realizing that's not cruelty, that's self-respect. I want that for myself. I want to be someone who doesn't tolerate being treated badly just because I'm afraid of being alone." "You will be. You already are." The trial happened 8 months later. I wasn't required to testify. My assault case was old and established, just part of the evidence pattern. But I went anyway, sat in the back of the courtroom and watched Vanessa face consequences. She'd lost weight. Her hair was dull, pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup. Orange jumpsuit instead of designer clothes. She looked small, ordinary, not like the glamorous monster who'd haunted my nightmares. The prosecutor laid out the case. 7 victims. Fake business proposals, romance scams, wire transfers, forged documents. The pattern was clear. Vanessa found men online, usually successful divorced men in their 40s and 50s, established romantic relationships, gained their trust, then convinced them to invest in her business opportunities. Once she had their money, she'd create excuses for why the business was delayed, ask for more money to solve problems, then eventually ghost them and move to a new city to find new victims. 3 of the victims testified. Their stories were heartbreaking. One man had given her $80,000, his entire retirement savings. Another had remortgaged his house. All of them had believed she loved them. All of them had believed the business was real. When Vanessa took the stand in her own defense, against her lawyer's advice, apparently, she tried to play victim again, claimed she'd been desperate after her divorce, claimed she genuinely believed the business ideas would work, claimed the men had been willing participants who knew the risks. The prosecutor destroyed her, showed emails where she'd lied about having cancer to get more money, texts where she'd claimed her elderly mother needed surgery, fake business documents she created using templates from the internet, photos of her luxury purchases made with victims' money while she was claiming poverty. And then they brought up my case, the assault, the house sale, the pattern of manipulation and theft going back years. Vanessa's face crumpled. For the first time she looked genuinely afraid. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing was scheduled for the following month, but the judge revoked bail immediately. Vanessa was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, crying. Not manipulative tears this time. Real, ugly, terrified crying. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, not even pity. Just nothing. Outside the courthouse, one of the victims approached me, the man who'd lost his retirement savings. His name was Robert. "You're Evelyn Harper," he said. "I saw you on the witness list. I didn't testify, but you pressed charges when she assaulted you." The prosecutor said that was crucial in establishing her pattern, that most victims don't press charges against family members, but you did, and it helped build the case against her. "I just didn't want to let her hit me and get away with it. You save people." Maybe not me, she'd already gotten to me. But future victims, people she would have scammed next year, 5 years from now. You stopped her. I didn't know what to say to that. "Thank you," Robert said, "for being brave enough to stand up to her when it mattered." He walked away before I could respond. Caleb was waiting by my car. "You okay?" "Yeah, just processing." She looked different. She looked like what she always was. We just couldn't see it before. "Do you feel better now that she's convicted?" I thought about it. I don't feel better, but I don't feel worse either. I just feel done, like I can finally close this chapter and move on. Me too. We drove back to my house in comfortable silence. No drama, no crisis, just a mother and son who'd survived something terrible and come out the other side. That evening, Caleb made dinner while I sat at the kitchen table paying bills. Normal, domestic, peaceful. "Mom," he said while stirring pasta sauce. "Yeah? I'm thinking about going back to school, getting my MBA. I've been working these 2 jobs for over a year, and I've saved up enough for tuition. I think it's time to invest in myself instead of just trading water." "That's a great idea." "It means the extra payments might have to stop for a while. I'll still pay the settlement amount, but the additional might need to wait until after I graduate." "Caleb, stop paying the extra entirely. The settlement is satisfied. You've paid back what Vanessa defaulted on. The rest is legally her debt, not yours. Save your money for school, invest in your future." "But I want to." "I know you do, and you've proven you meant it, but I'm telling you as your mother that you've done enough. More than enough. Now it's time to take care of yourself." He stopped stirring, turned to look at me. "Are you sure?" "Completely sure." "Thank you." "You're welcome." We ate dinner together that night, talking about classes he might take, career paths he was considering, the future instead of the past. It felt good, clean, like we'd finally washed off the stain of Vanessa's chaos. The sentencing came through 3 weeks later, 15 years. Vanessa would be eligible for parole in 10. I didn't go to the sentencing, neither did Caleb. We'd said everything we needed to say by showing up to the trial. The rest was between Vanessa and the legal system. Detective Chen called to let me know. She's being transferred to federal prison next week, out of state. She'll serve most of her sentence there. Will she have to pay restitution? The court ordered it, but honestly she'll probably never pay most of it back. Her wages in prison will be garnished, but that's pennies on the dollar. The civil judgments will stay active though. If she ever gets money again, you're in line. I'm not holding my breath. Smart, but at least she's off the streets. She can't hurt anyone else for a long time. After we hung up, I went outside to my garden. It was late summer, everything in full bloom. I'd planted roses this year, something I'd always wanted but never had time for before. They were thriving. I stood there in the evening light, looking at my roses, my house, my peaceful little life that Vanessa had tried so hard to destroy. And I realized something profound. She'd failed. She'd taken my money, insulted me, assaulted me, turned my son against me, and tried to paint me as the villain. She'd done everything possible to break me, and I was still standing, still here, still myself. The roses bloomed, the sun set, life continued. I'd won, not just legally, not just financially. I'd won the war for my own peace of mind, my own dignity, my own life. And that was worth more than any settlement check could ever be. The roses were still blooming when I got the letter. It arrived on a Thursday morning, mixed in with credit card offers and grocery store coupons. Plain white envelope, no return address, just my name and address in handwriting I didn't recognize. All caps, careful and deliberate, like someone trying to disguise their natural script. I almost threw it away. Almost. But something made me open it. The letter inside was written on lined paper, torn from a notebook, the edges still ragged. Dear Evelyn, you don't know me, but my name is Rachel Torres. I'm writing from the Clark County Detention Center in Nevada. I'm Vanessa's cellmate. She talks about you constantly, about how you ruined her life, how you turned her own husband against her, how you're a vindictive old woman who couldn't stand to see her successful and happy. I believed her at first. She's very convincing. But then I started noticing things. The way she talks about everyone else. They're all villains in her story. Everyone betrayed her. Everyone was jealous. Everyone was wrong except her. I've been in here 18 months for embezzlement. I did what they said I did. I own it. But Vanessa, she still thinks she's the victim, still thinks she did nothing wrong, still thinks that if she could just explain herself properly, everyone would understand. I'm writing because she's planning something. She got your address from her lawyer's files, stole it during a meeting, I think. She talks about writing to you, to Caleb, to the judge. She thinks she can fix everything with the right words. She thinks she can make you feel guilty enough to drop the civil judgment. I'm telling you this because I was like her once. I blamed everyone else for my problems, and it took losing everything for me to realize the truth, that I did it to myself. Vanessa hasn't learned that yet. Maybe she never will. Be careful. Whatever she sends you, don't believe it. She's not sorry. She's just sorry she got caught. Sincerely, Rachel Torres. I read the letter 3 times. Then I called Martin Cole. She's not supposed to contact you at all, he said. The restraining order might have expired, but harassment from prison is still harassment. If she writes to you directly, don't respond. Save everything and send it to me. We can use it to show she's still fixating on you, which helps if she ever gets parole hearing. This wasn't from her. It was from her cellmate warning me. Interesting. Very interesting. That suggests even people who should be sympathetic to her, other inmates, see through her manipulation. That's actually useful information. Should I be worried? No. She's in federal prison. She can't physically reach you. She can send letters, but letters can't hurt you unless you let them. If she does write, just forward everything to me unopened. Don't engage. I promised I would. But for days afterward, I felt unsettled, like Vanessa's shadow had crept back into my life, just when I thought I'd finally escaped it. The first letter from Vanessa arrived 2 weeks later. I recognized her handwriting immediately, that same elegant script she'd used on thank you notes and Christmas cards, back when she was pretending to be a decent human being. My name on the envelope looked like calligraphy. I didn't open it, drove straight to Martin's office and handed it to him. Good, he said, I'll document it. If more come, do the same thing. More came. 3 letters in 2 weeks, then 5 more over the next month. All unopened, all delivered to Martin's office. He started keeping them in a file labeled harassment evidence. What do they say? I asked during one of our meetings. The usual manipulation tactics. First letter was apologetic. She's sorry for everything. She's changed. She's found herself in prison. She understands now what she did wrong. Second letter was more aggressive. You ruined her life. You turned Caleb against her. You should drop the civil judgment because she can never pay it anyway. So why be cruel? Third letter claimed she has cancer and might die in prison without ever making amends. Fourth letter said her cancer was actually just a scare but made her realize life is precious. You see the pattern? She's throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. Exactly. When apology doesn't work, she tries guilt. When guilt doesn't work, she tries sympathy. When sympathy doesn't work, she tries anger. She's cycling through every manipulation technique she knows. Does Caleb know she's writing to me? Has she written to him? I don't know. We don't really talk about her anymore. But that night I asked him. He came over for dinner. He'd started doing that twice a week now, cooking for me since he'd gotten good at it during his bachelor months. We were having chicken and vegetables, something simple and healthy when I brought it up. Has Vanessa contacted you from prison? His fork paused halfway to his mouth. Yeah, letters, a lot of letters. You didn't mention it. Because I don't open them. They go straight in the trash. He set his fork down. Why? Is she writing to you too? Through her cellmate first, warning me she was going to, then directly. I've been giving them to Martin unopened. Good. Don't read them. It's all lies anyway. How do you know if you haven't read yours? Because I read the first 3 before I figured out the pattern. First one was her apologizing, saying she loved me, saying prison changed her. Second one blamed you for destroying our marriage. Third one said she was pregnant with my baby before the divorce and lost it from stress, and it was my fault for abandoning her. I felt my stomach turn. Was she pregnant? No, I checked the divorce records. Part of the divorce process is a mandatory pregnancy declaration in our state. She swore under oath she wasn't pregnant. So either she lied to the court then, or she's lying to me now. Either way, it's just another manipulation. That's sick. That's Vanessa. She'll say whatever she thinks will work. When love doesn't work, she tries guilt. When guilt doesn't work, she tries tragedy. It's all just different tools for the same goal. Getting back into our lives so she can use us again. He picked up his fork and continued eating, totally calm, like he was discussing weather instead of his ex-wife's psychological manipulation from prison. Doesn't it bother you? I asked. It used to. The first few letters tore me apart. I'd lie awake wondering if I'd been too harsh, if maybe she really had changed, if I should at least write back. But then I talked to Dr. Patel about it, and he asked me one question that changed everything. What question? He asked, if Vanessa got out of prison tomorrow with $1 million and didn't need anything from you, would she still be writing these letters? And I realized the answer was no. She's not writing because she misses me or loves me or wants to make amends. She's writing because she needs something, maybe money, maybe my testimony for an appeal, maybe just validation that she can still control me. But it's transactional. It always was. I sat with that. It made horrible sense. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever miss who she pretended to be? Not the real Vanessa, but the version we thought existed? I thought about it carefully. Sometimes I miss the idea of having a daughter-in-law I could be close to. I miss the family dinners that weren't tense. I miss believing my son was happy, but the woman I miss never existed. She was just a character Vanessa played. Yeah, he said quietly. That's exactly it. I mourned the wife I thought I had, but I was mourning a ghost. The real person was always a stranger. We finished dinner in comfortable silence. After he left, I stood at my kitchen window watching his taillights disappear down the street, and I felt grateful. Grateful he'd learned this lesson in his 30s instead of his 50s. Grateful he'd gotten out before she'd destroyed him completely. Grateful he'd chosen recovery over bitterness. The letters kept coming. Martin documented every single one. 10 letters became 20, became 30. Some months I'd get 5, some months none. There was no pattern except persistence. Then, 8 months into a sentence, something changed. I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. Local area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Harper, this is Denise Martinez. I'm a social worker with the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I'm calling about Vanessa Harper. My heart sank. What about her? She's listed you as her emergency contact. I'm calling to inform you that she was involved in an altercation with another inmate and is currently in the prison medical facility. She's stable, but she requested we contact you. I'm not her emergency contact. I'm not even related to her. She's my ex-daughter-in-law. A pause. Oh, I apologize. She listed you as her mother-in-law and provided this number. Do you know who her actual emergency contact should be? Her ex-husband, Caleb Harper, but they're divorced and he won't come. She has no other family that I know of. I see. Well, she's asking to speak with you. She says it's urgent. I'm not interested. Mrs. Harper, I understand there's history here, but she's quite insistent. She says she has information you need to know. Something about safety. I felt a chill. What kind of information? She wouldn't tell me. She says she'll only speak to you directly. Every instinct screamed not to do it. This was manipulation. This was Vanessa playing victim to get my attention. This was exactly what Rachel Torres had warned me about. But what if it wasn't? Fine, I heard myself say. Put her on. There was a click, some rustling, then Vanessa's voice, weaker than I remembered, hoarse. Evelyn. Just my name, not Mom, not Mrs. Harper, just my name, like we were equals. What do you want, Vanessa? I got attacked, another inmate. She came after me with a shiv in the shower. I'm sorry that happened, but I don't know why you're telling me. Because it's connected to you, to us. The woman who attacked me is Marcus Chen's sister-in-law. My blood went cold. What? Jennifer Chen's sister. She's in here for drug charges. She recognized me from the trial. Jennifer told the whole family what I did, and her sister decided to get revenge on her behalf. That's not my problem. It is if they come after you next, or Caleb. Jennifer Chen has been feeding information about us to anyone who'll listen. She's obsessed with revenge. She blames us for ruining her marriage. Vanessa, her marriage was ruined when her husband decided to embezzle company money to give to you. That's not our fault. I'm trying to warn you, these people are dangerous. Jennifer has connections, money, resources, and she wants everyone who touched Marcus to suffer. You're making this up. You're trying to scare me into what? Dropping the civil judgment, visiting you, feeling sorry for you. I'm trying to keep you safe. Her voice cracked. I know you hate me. I know I deserve it. But whatever else I did, I don't want you hurt because of me. Vanessa, if this is real, you tell the prison authorities. You file a report. You request protective custody. You don't call me and try to manipulate me into caring about you again. I did tell them. They're investigating. But that doesn't protect you on the outside. I'm locked up. You're not. If Jennifer decides to expand her revenge, then I'll deal with it. But I won't do it by talking to you. We're done. Don't call me again. Don't write straight to me again. Whatever we were to each other ended the day you hit me in my house. There's nothing left to discuss. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I immediately called Martin Cole and told him about the conversation. Jennifer Chen, he said slowly, I handled some of the coordination with her attorney during your case. She's not violent, she's methodical and legal. Everything she's done has been through proper channels. The story about her sister attacking Vanessa in prison sounds like fiction. Can you check? I'll make some calls. He called back an hour later. There was an altercation at the prison. Vanessa did go to medical. But according to my contact at the Bureau of Prisons, it wasn't an attack. Vanessa got in a fight over commissary access and came out on the losing end. The other inmate wasn't Jennifer Chen's sister, wasn't even Asian. Vanessa completely fabricated that story. Why? To get your attention, to make herself seem sympathetic, to create a scenario where she's the victim and you're obligated to care. Classic manipulation. It almost worked, but it didn't, because you're smarter than she gives you credit for. Don't answer if she calls again. I didn't, but she tried. 5 more calls over the next week, all from the prison. I let every single one go to voicemail, deleted them without listening. The letters changed tone after that. Martin opened a few to assess the threat level, and he said they'd become aggressive. Angry, Vanessa had realized the victim approach wasn't working, so now she was trying intimidation. She's threatening to go to the media, Martin told me. Says she'll tell them you're a cruel old woman who destroyed her life over money, that you turned her husband against her, that you're the real villain and she was just trying to survive. Can she do that? Technically, yes, but no reputable media outlet would touch it. Her credibility is destroyed. She's a convicted felon serving 15 years for fraud. Who's going to believe her sob story? And even if someone did run it, truth is an absolute defense. Everything you did was legal and justified. She assaulted you. You pressed charges. She owed you money. You sued. There's no story there except criminal faces, consequences. So I just ignore it. You ignore it. But ignoring it was harder than it sounded, because even though I knew Vanessa was lying, even though I knew she was manipulating, a small part of me still felt guilty, still wondered if I'd been too harsh, if I should have been more forgiving, if a better person would have given her another chance. Dr. Morrison helped me work through it in therapy. That guilt you're feeling is exactly what Vanessa's counting on, she said. She knows you're a kind person. She knows you have empathy. So she's weaponizing those qualities against you. She's hoping if she just pushes the right buttons, you'll doubt yourself enough to let her back in. But what if I was too harsh? Let me ask you something. If a stranger had come to your house, insulted you, hit you, stolen $40,000 from you, and then spent a year harassing you from prison, would you feel guilty for not forgiving them? No. Then why does Vanessa get different standards just because she married your son? I didn't have a good answer. Evelyn, you've done nothing wrong. You set reasonable boundaries. You pursued legal remedies for actual crimes. You protected yourself and your assets. Those are healthy, appropriate actions. The fact that Vanessa is suffering consequences for her choices doesn't make you the villain. It makes you a person who refused to be victimized. Then why do I feel so bad? Because you've been conditioned to prioritize other people's feelings over your own safety. Because society tells women, especially older women, that they should be endlessly forgiving and accommodating. Because Vanessa spent years training you to doubt yourself, but feelings aren't facts. You can feel guilty and still be completely in the right. That helped. Not immediately, but gradually. Each time the guilt crept in, I'd remind myself, feelings aren't facts. Meanwhile, Caleb was thriving. He'd started his MBA program and was excelling. Made the dean's list his first semester. Got a graduate assistantship that covered his tuition. Started dating someone, a woman named Patricia who worked in the university library. He brought her to meet me on a Sunday afternoon. Patricia was nothing like Vanessa. Quiet where Vanessa had been loud. Thoughtful where Vanessa had been impulsive. She asked questions about my life and actually listened to the answers. She insisted on helping with dishes after lunch. She complimented my garden without making it sound like a criticism. She's lovely, I told Caleb after she left. She's normal, he said, which feels like a miracle after everything. Does she know about Vanessa? I told her the basics. That I was married, that it ended badly, that my ex-wife is in prison for fraud. I didn't give her all the details. Didn't want to scare her off. But she knows I've got baggage. We all have baggage. Yeah, but mine is particularly ugly. Prison sentence level ugly. And she's still here. That says something about her character. He smiled. Yeah, it does. Watching him with Patricia felt like watching someone learn to walk after a long illness. Tentative at first, careful, but getting steadier with each step. 2 years into Vanessa's sentence, the letters finally stopped. I didn't notice immediately. They'd become so irregular that a month without one wasn't unusual, but then 2 months passed, then 3, then 6. She's probably found a new target, Martin said when I mentioned it. Someone else to manipulate, another inmate who believes her victim story, or maybe she's finally accepted that you're not responding and gave up. Do people like her ever really give up? Sometimes, when they realize a particular approach isn't working, they move on to easier marks. You made yourself a hard target. That's good. But I wondered, late at night when I couldn't sleep, I'd wonder what Vanessa was doing. If she'd really changed, if prison had forced her to confront herself, if somewhere in that facility she was doing the work of becoming a better person. Then I'd remember the letters, the lies, the manipulation, the fake pregnancy, the fabricated attack story, and I'd realize, no, people like Vanessa don't change. They just get better at hiding who they really are. Year 3 of Vanessa's sentence brought an unexpected visitor. I was gardening on a Saturday morning when a car pulled up. A woman got out, early 40s, professionally dressed, carrying a briefcase. Mrs. Harper? Evelyn Harper? Yes. My name is Dr. Sarah Kim. I'm a forensic psychologist working with the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I'm conducting a study on female offenders convicted of fraud and financial crimes. Vanessa Harper is one of my research subjects. I was hoping I could ask you some questions about your experiences with her. I pulled off my gardening gloves. For what purpose? I'm studying the long-term patterns of behavior in serial fraudsters, how they select victims, how they maintain deception over time, what finally causes their schemes to collapse. Vanessa mentioned you multiple times during our interviews, and I wanted to get your perspective. She's still talking about me? Extensively. You and Caleb are recurring themes in her narrative. She has very strong feelings about what happened between you. I bet she does. Dr. Kim smiled slightly. I promise confidentiality. Nothing you tell me will be shared with Vanessa or used in any way that could identify you in my research. I'm just trying to understand the psychology behind these crimes. Something about her seemed legitimate, trustworthy, or maybe I just wanted to talk to someone who'd actually studied people like Vanessa, someone who might be able to explain what the hell had happened to my family. Come inside, I said. We sat in my living room with coffee. Dr. Kim pulled out a recorder and asked permission to tape our conversation. I agreed. Tell me how you first met Vanessa, she said. So I did. I told her everything. The whirlwind courtship, the wedding, the down payment on the house, the gradual escalation of controlling behavior, the insults, the money problems, the secret house sale, the slap, all of it. Dr. Kim took notes and asked clarifying questions. She was particularly interested in the moment I'd called the police. That was a pivotal decision, she said. Most victims in familial fraud cases don't pursue criminal charges. What made you do it? Honestly, rage. Pure, simple rage. She'd just humiliated me in front of my neighbors. She'd hit me in my own home. And I realized if I didn't do something right then, she'd get away with it. She'd rewrite the story to make herself the victim and me the villain. And I couldn't let that happen. So it was about narrative control. It was about truth, about making sure someone official documented what actually happened, not just her version. Dr. Kim nodded, writing. Vanessa claims you called the police out of spite, to punish her for rejecting your attempts to control Caleb's marriage. I almost laughed. Of course she does, but that's not accurate. I called the police because she committed assault. The fact that she can't accept responsibility for that tells you everything you need to know about her. Indeed. Dr. Kim set down her pen. Mrs. Harper, in my professional opinion, Vanessa displays classic symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial features. She has no genuine empathy, no ability to accept responsibility for her actions, and an extreme need to control how others perceive her. The fraud, the manipulation, the victim narrative, it's all part of a consistent pattern. Can people like that change? Rarely, and only with intensive therapy that they actually commit to. But people with her profile usually don't seek genuine treatment because they don't believe anything is wrong with them. The problem is always everyone else. So she'll get out of prison in 10 years and just do this again. Most likely, yes. Unless something fundamental shifts, she'll find new victims and repeat the same patterns. She might be more careful. She's learned what triggers law enforcement. But the core behavior, that rarely changes without intervention, she's not receiving. After Dr. Kim left, I sat alone with that information. 10 years from now, Vanessa would be back in the world, 50 years old, still attractive, still charming, still dangerous, and she'd find new people to destroy. The thought made me sick. That night I called Caleb. A psychologist came to interview me today about Vanessa. She's doing a study on female criminals. Yeah, she contacted me too. I declined. Why? Because I'm done giving Vanessa any more of my time or energy, even for research. I've moved on, Mom. I need you to move on too. I'm trying. I know. But every time you engage with anything Vanessa related, you're letting her live rent-free in your head. The letters, the calls, now this interview, it's all just different ways of keeping her present in your life. Let her go. She talked about us in her interviews. The psychologist said we're recurring themes in her narrative. Of course we are, because blaming us is easier than accepting what she did. But that's her problem, not ours. We don't have to participate in her delusion. He was right. I knew he was right. "How's Patricia?" I asked, changing the subject. "Good. Really good, actually. I'm thinking about asking her to move in with me." "That's a big step." "It is, but it feels right. She's been patient with my mess, and I think I'm finally ready for something real." "I'm happy for you, sweetheart." "Thanks, Mom. And I'm happy for you too. I know it's been hard, but you're doing great. You stood up for yourself. You set boundaries. You survived. That's huge." After we hung up, I realized he was right about something else too. I needed to let go, not forgive. Forgiveness wasn't required, but let go of the anger, the resentment, the space Vanessa still occupied in my mind. Dr. Morrison and I worked on that for months, processing the trauma, releasing the grip of past hurts, learning to focus on my present instead of constantly rehashing the past. Slowly, gradually, I felt lighter. The nightmares became less frequent. My sleep improved. Food started tasting good again. I stopped checking my mailbox with dread, stopped jumping when the phone rang. I started traveling, something I'd always wanted to do but never prioritized. Took a cruise to Alaska, flew to Boston to see autumn leaves, spent a week in Arizona exploring the desert. Arizona felt different, peaceful. The light was cleaner somehow, the air drier, the pace slower. I could breathe there. I started researching retirement communities in the area, just looking at first, then visiting, then seriously considering. "You're thinking about moving?" Caleb asked when I told him. "Maybe, would that bother you?" "Honestly, no, I think it might be good for you. Fresh start, new place where nobody knows the story, where you can just be yourself instead of the woman whose daughter-in-law went to prison." That's what I was thinking. "Then do it. I'll visit. Patricia and I can make it a regular trip. Arizona's beautiful." So I put my house on the market. It sold in 3 weeks. Apparently my neighborhood had gotten trendy while I wasn't paying attention. The equity was substantial, enough to buy a nice place in Arizona and have plenty left over for living expenses. I said goodbye to Mrs. Chen, to Jim Morrison, to the other neighbors who'd witnessed that awful day. They were happy for me, understood why I needed to leave. "You deserve peace," Mrs. Chen said, hugging me on my last day. "Go find it." I packed up 30 years of memories and drove west toward a new life in a place where nobody knew my name or my story, and for the first time in years I felt free. Arizona was supposed to be my escape, my fresh start, the place where I could finally be just Evelyn, not the woman whose daughter-in-law went to prison, or that poor mother who got slapped by her own family. For the first 6 months it worked. I bought a small house in a retirement community called Desert Haven, about 40 minutes outside Phoenix. The community was perfect, quiet, well-maintained, full of people my age who were more interested in discussing their grandchildren and golf games than asking about my past. My house had a backyard that faced the mountains, and I spent my first weeks there planting a garden, roses mostly. Something about coaxing beauty out of harsh desert soil felt therapeutic. I made friends. Dorothy from 3 doors down, who taught watercolor painting. Frank and Helen, who hosted weekly card games. Maria, who'd lost her husband the same year I'd lost mine and understood the specific loneliness of eating dinner alone. Caleb visited twice that first year, bringing Patricia both times. They were talking about getting engaged. He looked healthy, filled out, less haunted. His MBA was almost finished and he had job offers from 3 different companies. "You seem happy," I told him during their second visit. "I am, finally." He looked around my backyard at the roses blooming against the desert landscape. "You do too." I'm getting there, and I was. The therapy had helped. The distance had helped. The fact that nobody here knew my story had helped most of all. I could be anyone I wanted. No history, no baggage. Just a widow enjoying her retirement. But peace, I was learning, is a fragile thing. The call came on a Tuesday morning in March, 4 years into Vanessa's sentence. I was watering my roses when my phone rang. Unknown number, but a familiar area code, the same one as the prison. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. Same number. Again. 5 calls in 10 minutes. Finally, I answered. What? Mrs. Harper, this is Warden Patricia Simmons from FCI Victorville. I'm calling about Vanessa Harper. My stomach dropped. What about her? She's been hospitalized, attempted suicide. She's stable now, but she's requesting to speak with you. She says it's urgent. I don't care what she says. I'm not her family. I'm not her emergency contact. I'm nothing to her. Mrs. Harper, I understand there's difficult history, but she's quite insistent. She says she has information about a threat against you, against your son. The same play as before, the same manipulation. Create a crisis, claim there's danger, force me to engage. This is the second time she's pulled this stunt, I said. Last time it was a fabricated story about Jennifer Chen's sister attacking her. It was all lies. This is just another manipulation. I'm aware of that incident, and you're right to be skeptical. But Mrs. Harper, she slit her wrists in her cell. This wasn't a performance. Whatever her reasons, she's genuinely in crisis. Then get her psychiatric help, but don't call me. I'm not participating in this anymore. She won't speak to the psychiatric team. She'll only talk to you. That's not my problem. Mrs. Harper, no, absolutely not. She lost the right to my concern when she hit me in my own home. She lost it again when she harassed me from prison. She lost it a third time when she lied about threats to manipulate me. I'm done. Whatever happens to her now is between her and whatever passes for her conscience. Leave me out of it. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I sat down on my patio chair and stared at the mountains, trying to steady my breathing. She tried to kill herself, or at least made it look like she tried. Was it real, or was it just another, more desperate manipulation? And did it even matter? The phone rang again. Different number this time. I didn't recognize it. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mom? Caleb's voice. But wrong, shaking, scared. What's wrong? Did the prison call you? Yes, about Vanessa. I told them I'm not getting involved. Mom, I'm at the hospital. They called me too, and I couldn't just ignore it. So I drove down here. I'm looking at her right now through a window, and Mom, she looks dead. She's so pale and thin, and there are tubes everywhere, and I know she's terrible, and I know what she did. But seeing her like this, his voice broke. Caleb, breathe. Just breathe. She's asking for you, begging for you. The nurses say she keeps saying your name over and over. Get Evelyn. I need Evelyn. Mom, I know this is asking too much, but would you consider? No. Silence. Caleb, I can't. I won't. This is exactly what she wants. To drag us both back into her orbit. To make herself the center of attention again. To prove she still has power over us. What if she really dies? Then she dies, and that's tragic, but it's not my responsibility. I didn't put her in prison. I didn't make her slash her wrists. Those were her choices, not mine. Mom, that's cold. It's survival, and if you can't see the difference, then you haven't learned as much as I thought you had. Another silence. Longer this time. You're right, he said finally. You're absolutely right. I shouldn't have called. I shouldn't have come here. I'm letting her manipulate me again. It's okay to feel sympathy for someone who's suffering. That makes you human. But sympathy doesn't obligate you to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. Come home, Caleb. Let the professionals handle this. Okay, I'm leaving now. After we hung up, I sat very still. Part of me felt guilty, the same part that had felt guilty for pressing charges, for suing her, for not dropping everything to rush to her bedside now. That part whispered that maybe I was heartless, maybe I was cruel, maybe a better person would show compassion. But I'd learned to recognize that voice for what it was, years of conditioning, telling me that other people's feelings mattered more than my own well-being, that being kind meant being available for abuse, that setting boundaries made you the villain. I called Dr. Morrison. Even though I'd moved, we still did occasional phone sessions. She's trying to force contact, Dr. Morrison said after I explained. The suicide attempt, real or staged, is leverage. She's hoping you'll feel guilty enough or scared enough to engage. But Evelyn, listen to me carefully. You are not responsible for her mental health. You are not obligated to save her. And engaging with her right now would be harmful to your own recovery. But what if she really does kill herself? Then that's a choice she made, not you. People who genuinely want to die don't usually call for specific witnesses first. They just do it. The fact that she's demanding you suggests this is theatre. But even if it's not, even if she's genuinely suicidal, you're still not qualified or obligated to fix her. She needs professional psychiatric help, not her ex-mother-in-law. Caleb thinks I'm being cold. Caleb is still processing his own trauma. He's allowed to feel conflicted, but his feelings don't dictate your actions. You've set a boundary, hold it. I held it for 3 days. The prison called repeatedly. I blocked the number. Then they started calling from different numbers. I stopped answering calls from area codes I didn't recognize. Caleb texted me updates. Vanessa was stable. Vanessa was in psychiatric observation. Vanessa was still asking for me. Vanessa had written another letter, this one claiming she had proof that Marcus Chen's family was planning to hurt me and she'd die before she could warn me if I didn't visit. I didn't respond to the texts. Didn't visit, didn't engage, and then on day 4 the call stopped. Caleb texted, she's stable. They moved her back to general population. She stopped asking for you. I think it's over. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in 4 days. But it wasn't over. Not really. 2 weeks later, a woman showed up at my door. Mid-50s, expensive clothes, professional demeanor. She introduced herself as Catherine Ellis, Vanessa's attorney. I'm not discussing anything with you, I said through the screen door. I'm not here on Vanessa's behalf. I'm here to give you information you deserve to have. What information? Can I come in? This is sensitive. Every instinct said no, but curiosity won. I let her into my living room, but didn't offer coffee or comfort. Vanessa's parole hearing is coming up, Catherine said. In 6 months. She served almost 5 years, and with good behavior credits, she's eligible for early release. My blood went cold. 5 years? Her sentence was 15. 15 was the maximum. With federal sentencing guidelines and credits for completed programs, she could be out in 7 to 8 years total. The parole board will review her case in 6 months. Can they really let her out that early? If she demonstrates rehabilitation, shows remorse, has a solid re-entry plan, and poses minimal risk to society, yes. It's unlikely for a first hearing, but possible. She hasn't demonstrated any of those things. That's where you come in. The parole board will consider victim impact statements. If you and Kayla both submit statements opposing her release, it strengthens the case for keeping her incarcerated longer. Why are you telling me this? You're her lawyer. Catherine's expression hardened. I was hired by Vanessa's father to represent her. He died last year. Before he passed, he told me the truth about his daughter, said she'd been manipulating and stealing from people since she was a teenager, said he'd bailed her out of situations 12 times before you ever met her. He begged me to make sure she served her full sentence because he genuinely believed she was dangerous. Why didn't he testify at her trial? He did. Prosecution witness. You probably never noticed him, older man in the back. He told them everything. It helped convict her. Vanessa never spoke to him again. When he died, she didn't even ask about funeral arrangements. I felt sick. Her own father. Her own father who spent 20 years trying to fix her and finally realized she couldn't be fixed. His dying words to me were, don't let her fool you. She'll seem changed. She'll seem remorseful. It's all performance. Keep her locked up as long as possible. So I'm here honoring his final request, asking you to submit a victim impact statement. What happens if she gets out? If she'll be on supervised release for years, mandatory check-ins, restrictions on financial activities, but she'll be free to move around, get jobs, meet new people, meet new victims. I thought about Dr. Kim's words. People like Vanessa rarely change. They just get more careful. I'll write a statement, I said. So will Caleb. Thank you. Catherine stood to leave, then paused. One more thing. Vanessa's been writing a book, a memoir, about her life, her marriage, the trial. She's been showing it to publishers from prison. A book. She's positioning herself as the victim of a vindictive family and a harsh justice system. Claims she was driven to desperate acts by poverty and abuse. It's all lies, but it's compelling lies. Some publishers are interested. If it gets published before the parole hearing, it could influence public opinion, which could influence the board. Can we stop it? No, First Amendment, but you can write your own truth, tell your own story. Make sure the real narrative is out there too. After she left, I sat with that information. Vanessa was writing a book, rewriting history, turning herself into a sympathetic figure and me into a villain. The thought made me furious, but also determined. I spent 2 weeks writing my victim impact statement. Not just the facts, the emotional truth. What it felt like to be hit by someone I tried to help. What it felt like to discover the money I'd saved for decades had been spent on designer handbags and affairs. What it felt like to be harassed from prison for years. What it felt like to move across the country just to escape the trauma. Caleb wrote his own statement, shorter but powerful. He focused on the financial manipulation, the emotional abuse, the lies about pregnancy and cancer and threats. He ended with, "My ex-wife is not rehabilitated. She simply learned that her old tactics don't work on me anymore. If released, she will find new victims who don't know her patterns. She should serve her full sentence." We submitted them to the parole board together. Then we waited. The 6 months crawled by. I threw myself into my garden, my watercolor classes, my new life. But the waiting ate at me. Every night I'd lie awake wondering if Vanessa would somehow charm her way out early, if she'd come to Arizona, if I'd open my door one day and find her standing there. Dr. Morrison reminded me repeatedly that I'd done everything I could, that the rest was out of my hands, that I couldn't control the outcome, only my response to it. Easy to say, harder to internalize. Then, 1 week before the hearing, I got an email from someone named Michael Torres. The subject line read, "About Vanessa Harper." I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. "Mrs. Harper, my name is Michael Torres. My sister Rachel was Vanessa's cellmate for a while. She wrote to you once warning you about Vanessa's plans. Rachel got out 3 months ago and has been doing well. She wanted me to contact you because she has information about Vanessa's memoir. Rachel read early drafts. She says it's full of lies about you and your son. Claims you were emotionally abusive. Claims Caleb was controlling and violent. Claims she turned to Marcus Chen because she was desperate to escape a toxic family situation. Rachel kept copies of the pages. She's willing to provide them to the parole board to show Vanessa is still lying, still manipulating, still rewriting reality to suit her narrative. If you're interested, please contact me." I forwarded the email to Catherine Ellis immediately. She called me an hour later. "This is perfect. This proves Vanessa hasn't changed, hasn't taken responsibility, is still actively constructing false narratives. I'll contact Rachel Torres and get those pages. The parole board needs to see this." Will it be enough? Combined with your statements, with her prison record, with this evidence of ongoing deception, yes, I think it will be enough. The parole hearing happened on a Thursday. Neither Caleb nor I attended. We'd been told our presence wasn't required since we'd submitted written statements. Catherine represented our interests. I spent that day in my garden, pruning roses with shaking hands. Caleb called 3 times, nervous. Patricia called once, offering support. Dr. Morrison sent an encouraging text. At 4 p.m. Arizona time, my phone rang. Catherine Ellis. "Parole denied," she said. "Unanimous decision." The board cited lack of genuine remorse, evidence of continued manipulation, and high risk of re-offending. She'll be eligible for another hearing in 3 years, but given today's decision, her chances are minimal. She'll likely serve close to her full sentence. I sat down hard on my patio chair. She'll serve the full sentence. Most of it, yes, maybe 10 to 12 years total instead of 15, but she's not getting out anytime soon. Thank you. Thank you for standing your ground. A lot of victims crumble under this kind of pressure. You didn't. That made all the difference. After we hung up, I called Caleb. It's over, I said. She's staying in. I heard him exhale. It's really over? For now? For years? Maybe forever. Mom, I need to tell you something. What? I almost went to the hearing, almost stood up and spoke on her behalf. Patricia talked me out of it at the last minute, but I almost did it. Why? Because part of me still feels guilty, still feels like maybe I owe her something. Like maybe if I'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have become what she became. Patricia reminded me that's insane, that Vanessa was like this long before we met, but the guilt is still there. That's normal, Caleb. Abuse victims often feel responsible for their abuser's actions. It's part of the conditioning, but you fought it. You didn't go. That's what matters. Do you still feel guilty? Sometimes. Less than before, but sometimes. I think that's just part of having empathy. We feel for people even when they don't deserve it, but feeling guilty and acting on that guilt are different things. We can acknowledge the feelings without letting them control us. When did you get so wise? When I lost everything and had to figure out how to survive. Same as you. We talked for another hour about his upcoming wedding to Patricia. He'd proposed last month and she'd said yes. About his new job at a tech company in Seattle. About his future, about mine. About how we'd both survived something that could have destroyed us and somehow came out stronger. That night I sat in my backyard watching the sunset, paint, the mountains orange and purple. My roses were blooming, a deep red variety that thrived in the desert heat. I'd named them Survivor roses in my head, though I never told anyone that. It felt too dramatic. But sitting there, smelling their perfume, feeling the evening cooled on my skin, I realized something profound. I'd survived. Not just the assault, not just the lawsuit, not just the years of harassment. I'd survived the guilt, the doubt, the voice in my head that told me I should have done more, been kinder, tried harder. I'd survived all of it, and I was still here. Still myself, maybe stronger, definitely wiser. And Vanessa was exactly where she deserved to be, locked away from the people she'd tried to destroy, facing consequences she'd spent her entire life avoiding. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt free. A week later, another email arrived, this time from a publisher in New York. They'd heard about Vanessa's memoir from her agent. They'd also been contacted by Catherine Ellis with the full story. They wanted to know if I'd be interested in writing my own book, The Real Story, a survivor's narrative about standing up to family manipulation and financial abuse. I deleted the email. I didn't need to tell my story to the world. I'd told it to the people who mattered, the police, the judge, the parole board, my son, my therapist. That was enough. Some stories don't need a bigger audience. Some victories don't need public validation. Some peace is private. My phone buzzed. Text from Caleb. Patricia and I set a date, June 15, small wedding, her family and you. Will you come? I smiled and typed back, wouldn't miss it. The sun dipped below the mountains and the desert air turned from hot to perfect. I stayed outside until the stars came out, bright and sharp in the clear sky, nothing like the hazy stars back home. This was home now, this desert peace, this quiet life, this version of myself who'd learned to say no, to set boundaries, to protect what mattered. Somewhere in a federal prison, Vanessa was learning that manipulation has limits, that eventually people stop believing, that you can rewrite history in your head, but reality keeps its own records. And somewhere in Seattle, Caleb was building a life with someone who actually loved him instead of what he could provide. And here in Arizona, I was watering roses and watching stars and finally breathing easy. The hardest battles really are the ones fought against people you once loved. But standing up for yourself doesn't make you cruel. Sometimes protecting your peace is the bravest thing you can do. I learned that the hard way, but I learned it. and that, I was discovering, was worth everything. 3 years of desert peace passed before the letter arrived that would test everything I'd learned. It wasn't from Vanessa this time, it was from the Department of Corrections, forwarded through Catherine Ellis with a note clipped to the front. Thought you should see this before it becomes official. The letter informed me that Vanessa Harper had been diagnosed with stage 3 cervical cancer. Aggressive, fast-moving. She'd declined rapidly over the past 4 months and the prognosis wasn't good. The prison medical system was recommending compassionate release, a legal mechanism that allows terminally ill inmates to die outside prison walls. Her request cited me as the only family willing to take her in. I read it 3 times, certain I'd misunderstood. Then I called Catherine. "This is real?" I asked. "Unfortunately, yes. The cancer diagnosis is legitimate. I verified with the prison medical director. She has maybe 6 months, probably less. And yes, she listed you as her proposed release placement." "That's insane. I'm not her family. I have a restraining order against her." "The restraining order expired years ago, and technically you're still her former mother-in-law, which counts as family connection for release purposes. She claims she has no one else." "What about her mother, siblings?" "Mother died while Vanessa was in prison. No siblings. Her father's family cut ties decades ago. She's isolated herself from everyone except the people she victimized." I felt something twist in my chest. Not sympathy exactly, something more complicated. "So she's dying alone?" "Yes, and she wants to die in your home." The audacity of it took my breath away. After everything, after the assault, the theft, the harassment, the suicide manipulation, the lies to the parole board, she wanted me to welcome her into my house for her final months, to care for her while she died. What happens if I say no? She dies in prison medical, which is actually pretty humane. They have hospice care, pain management, professional staff. She won't suffer unnecessarily. But she's making it sound like I'm condemning her to die in some hellhole. That's exactly what she's doing. Classic Vanessa, manipulating the optics. If you refuse, she can tell herself and anyone who'll listen that you're so cruel, you wouldn't even let a dying woman have dignity in her final days. And if I say yes? Catherine's pause was meaningful. Then you spend 6 months caring for someone who destroyed your family. 6 months of medical appointments, hospice nurses in your home watching her decline. 6 months of her having access to you, your space, your peace. Even dying, Vanessa is still Vanessa. The manipulation won't stop just because she's sick. Has she asked Caleb? He was her first choice. He refused immediately, said he'd pay for her hospice care in a facility, but she couldn't live with him. That's when she listed you. Of course he refused. Caleb had learned his boundaries. He'd married Patricia 2 years ago. A beautiful wedding in Seattle where he'd looked genuinely happy for the first time in years. They were expecting their first child, my first grandchild, in 3 months. He'd built a real life, and he wasn't about to let Vanessa's dying manipulation destroy it. But somehow the request had still landed on me. "I need time to think," I told Catherine. "You have a week before they need an answer. But Evelyn, think carefully. Some doors, once opened, can't be closed again." I spent that week in turmoil. Part of me wanted to refuse outright. Let Vanessa face the consequences of alienating everyone who'd ever tried to help her. She'd made her choices. She'd burned every bridge. Why was it my responsibility to rescue her now? But another part, that persistent, nagging part that therapy hadn't quite eliminated, whispered about basic human decency, about not letting someone die alone regardless of what they'd done, about being the bigger person. I called Dr. Morrison. "This is not about being the bigger person," she said firmly. "This is about whether you're willing to sacrifice your peace and potentially your health to care for someone who has shown you nothing but cruelty. Evelyn, you're 70 now. You have health issues of your own. Caring for a dying person is physically and emotionally exhausting under the best circumstances. Under these circumstances, it could break you. But she's dying. So people die, that's not your fault, and it's not your responsibility to fix. She had decades to build relationships, to be kind to people, to create a support system. She chose manipulation and cruelty instead. These are the natural consequences of those choices. What if I regret saying no? What if you regret saying yes? Which regret can you live with better? I thought about that for a long time. Then I called Caleb. Mom, no, he said immediately. Please tell me you're not actually considering this. I'm trying to figure out the right thing to do. The right thing is to let her die in prison hospice, where there are professionals trained for this. Mom, she will make your life hell. Even dying, especially dying, she'll find ways to manipulate and control. She'll guilt you about her pain. She'll demand more and more. She'll probably try to change her will or write some final letter painting you as her savior to rewrite history one last time. Don't do this. She's alone, Caleb. Because she made everyone leave, that's not your problem to solve. You don't owe her comfort just because she's dying. You don't owe her anything. But even as he said it, I heard something in his voice. Not uncertainty exactly, more like recognition. He understood the pull I was feeling because he'd felt it too. That's why his refusal had been so immediate. He knew if he hesitated even for a second, the guilt would consume him. I talked to Patricia next. She'd never met Vanessa, only heard the stories, but she had a clarity that came from distance. Evelyn, do you want to do this? She asked. Not should you, not is it right. Do you actually want to spend 6 months caring for this woman? No. Then don't. It's that simple. But people will think I'm heartless. What people? The neighbors who don't know the full story? Who cares what they think? The only people whose opinions matter, Caleb, me, your friends here, we all support you saying no. Everyone who knows the truth understands. What about my conscience? Your conscience should be clear. You tried to help her once and she assaulted you. You gave her money and she stole it. You gave her chances and she burned them. There's a difference between compassion and self-destruction. Compassion has limits. After that week of agonizing, I made my decision. I called Catherine Ellis. My answer is no, she can die in prison hospice. Are you certain? Completely certain. I'll inform the prison. They'll arrange for hospice care in the medical unit. She'll be comfortable. Good. And Catherine, don't contact me again about this. Whatever happens now, I don't want to know. I'm closing this door permanently. Understood. I thought that would be the end, that I'd feel relief, maybe some residual guilt, but mostly just peace at having set a firm boundary. Instead, 2 days later, I got a package. It was a thick manila envelope, forwarded from Caleb's address. Inside was a handwritten letter, pages and pages in Vanessa's familiar script, increasingly shaky toward the end, and a USB drive. Against every instinct, I read the letter. Evelyn, by the time you read this, you'll have refused my release request. I expected that. I've spent 8 years in here understanding that I destroyed every relationship I had, understanding that I burned bridges with everyone who tried to help me, understanding that I did this to myself. I'm writing because I owe you the truth. Not the version I told in my memoir, which no one published, by the way. Turns out no one wants to hear from an unrepentant criminal. Not the version I told in my parole hearing, the actual truth. I was a con artist long before I met Caleb. Started when I was 16, stealing from my parents' friends. Graduated to Roman scams in my 20s. Caleb wasn't my first victim. He was just the one I got caught with. I targeted him specifically because he had a good job, a savings account, and a generous mother. I researched you before we even met. Found out about your husband's death, your retirement savings, your tendency to trust family. I planned the whole thing, the whirlwind romance, the perfect fiancé act, the down payment request. All of it was calculated. The only thing I didn't plan was getting attached. Not to Caleb, I never loved him, not really, but to the life, to feeling like someone's family, to having a place at holiday tables. For a little while, I almost convinced myself I could do it for real, be the person I was pretending to be, but I couldn't. The real me is rotten, always has been. The money from your house went to my affair with Marcus, yes, but also to 5 other men I was scamming simultaneously. The business was just a cover for juggling multiple marks. When it all collapsed and you called the police, I was almost relieved. At least I didn't have to pretend anymore. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I'm not sorry for myself. I earned this ending. I'm writing because you deserve to know it was never your fault. You weren't too trusting or too naive. I was just that good at lying. You couldn't have prevented any of it by being smarter or more suspicious. I would have found another angle. The USB drive has my real memoir. Not the sanitized version I shop to publishers. The truth. Every scam, every victim, every lie, going back 20 years. I'm giving it to you because someday someone's going to write a book or make a documentary about me. The woman who scammed 7 men for $300,000. And when they do, they'll get my story wrong. They'll make me sympathetic or make me a monster, but neither version will be accurate. The truth is worse and simpler. I'm just a person who decided early on that other people existed to give me things, and I got very good at taking. You're the only person who saw through me and didn't blink, who stood up and said no and made it stick. I respect that, even though I hate you for it, or I did hate you. Now I'm mostly just tired. The cancer is eating me from the inside out, which feels poetic. I spent my life consuming other people, and now I'm being consumed. There's probably a lesson in that, but I'm too sick to care. I won't ask you to visit. I won't ask you to write. I won't ask for anything except this. Tell Caleb I'm sorry, really sorry. Not the manipulative sorry I said in my letters. The kind of sorry that comes from knowing you destroyed someone who deserved better. He was a good person, and I tried to break him. I almost succeeded, but you saved him. You saved yourself too. I failed to destroy either of you, and that's the only thing I've done right in years. Die knowing I lost. Vanessa. I sat with that letter for hours, read it over and over, looked for the manipulation, the angle, the lie hidden in apparent honesty. But if it was there, I couldn't find it. The letter felt true in a way Vanessa's other communications never had. Raw, bitter, unperforming, like she'd finally run out of energy for the mask. I plugged in the USB drive. It was a Word document, 200 pages, her real memoir, like she'd said. I skimmed it. She wasn't exaggerating. It was a chronicle of 20 years of scams, starting with stealing jewelry from her mother's friends as a teenager and escalating to elaborate cons in her 20s and 30s. Caleb was just one in a long line of marks. I was just one of many parents or relatives she targeted for money. But what struck me most was the tone. Not proud like I'd expected from someone recounting successful crimes. Not remorseful either, like she'd written in her letters. Just clinical, like she was documenting case studies. Person A had weakness B, so I used approach C. It worked. Here's what I learned. It was chilling. I called Caleb and told him about the package. Don't read it, he said. Whatever it says, it's still manipulation. Even her truth is just another kind of lie. I think this one might actually be true. Then definitely don't read it. What good does it do you to confirm that she targeted us deliberately, that everything was calculated? You already know that, Mom. Knowing the specific details just hurts more. He was right. I closed the document without reading further, but I kept the USB drive, locked it in my safe deposit box at the bank with a note. Vanessa Harper's confession, to be opened only if needed for legal or historical purposes. Someday, maybe someone would need to know the truth, but that someone didn't need to be me, and today didn't need to be the day. 3 months later, Catherine Ellis called. Vanessa Harper died this morning. Prison hospice, morphine drip, peaceful by all accounts. I felt nothing. Not relief, not sadness, not closure, just nothing. Thank you for telling me. There's one more thing. She left something for you in her property, a letter. The prison is asking if you want it forwarded or destroyed. destroyed. Whatever it says, I don't need to read it. Understood. And Evelyn, you did the right thing, both by refusing her release and by refusing this final letter. Some people spend their whole lives trying to manipulate others. They don't stop just because they're dying. You recognize that. Not everyone would have. After we hung up, I went outside to my roses. They were in full bloom, red and pink and yellow, thriving in the desert sun. I thought about Vanessa dying alone in a prison medical unit. I tried to feel something about it. Sadness maybe, or vindication, or at least resolution. But all I felt was tired. Tired of thinking about her. Tired of processing her impact on my life. Tired of giving her space in my head. She was dead. It was over. Finally, completely, irrevocably over. That evening, Caleb called. I heard, he said, from Catherine. Are you okay? I'm fine. How are you? Relieved. Is that terrible? No, it's honest. I keep thinking I should feel more, sad or guilty or something, but I just feel like a weight I didn't know I was carrying finally got lifted. That's exactly right. She was a weight, an anchor, a constant low-level dread that maybe she'd get out early or find some new way to intrude. Now she can't. It's really over. Patricia asked if we should send flowers to whatever service they have. Are they having a service? I don't know. I didn't ask. Do you want to know? I thought about it. No, I don't want to know where she's buried, or if anyone mourned her, or what her final words were. I want to be done thinking about her at all. Yeah, me too. We talked for a while longer about normal things. His daughter, my granddaughter Emma, now 6 months old and apparently a handful. Patricia's new job, his promotion at work, plans to visit me in Arizona over Christmas. Life. Ordinary, beautiful, Vanessa-free life. After we hung up, I realized I was smiling. Not because Vanessa was dead, I wasn't that callous, but because the chapter was finally closed. The book was done. I could move forward without looking back. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I was watering my roses when Dorothy from down the street stopped by. Evelyn, dear, you look radiant today. What's your secret? I almost said something generic. The weather, a good night's sleep, these roses blooming so nicely. But something made me tell the truth. I survived something terrible, I said, and I finally stopped letting it define me. Dorothy squeezed my hand. Good for you, dear, good for you. Caleb, Patricia, and baby Emma came for Christmas that year. We had dinner in my small dining room. Turkey and all the sides, made from my mother's old recipes. Emma sat in a high chair making a mess of sweet potatoes while Patricia laughed, and Caleb tried to clean her up with increasingly exasperated affection. This was what family was supposed to look like. Not perfect, not Instagram worthy, just real people who loved each other, sharing a meal, making memories that didn't need to be documented or performed. After dinner, Caleb helped me clean up while Patricia put Emma down for a nap. Mom, I need to tell you something. Patricia's pregnant again. It's early. We weren't going to announce yet, but I wanted you to know you're going to have 2 grandchildren. I hugged him tight. That's wonderful. I'm terrified, he admitted. What if I screw them up? What if I teach them the wrong lessons? What if I'm not enough? You'll make mistakes. Every parent does. But you know what Vanessa did wrong, which means you know what not to do. Love them. Set boundaries. Show them that relationships should be safe, not manipulative. You'll be fine. You really think so? I know so. You're not the man you were when you met her. You're better, stronger, wiser. Those kids are lucky to have you as a father. His eyes got wet. Thank you for not giving up on me. For calling the police that day, even though it meant I'd be angry at you. For doing the hard thing instead of the easy thing. You saved my life, Mom. I know I didn't see it then, but I see it now. You saved your own life by choosing to change. I just refused to enable the destruction. Still, thank you. We finished the dishes in comfortable silence. Outside, the desert sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. Emma woke up from her nap and came toddling into the kitchen, reaching for her father. He picked her up and she giggled, grabbing his nose. This was what I'd fought for. Not revenge on Vanessa. Not even justice, really. Just the chance to have this. Normal moments with my son and his family, untainted by manipulation or fear. That night, after they'd gone to bed in my guest room, I sat on my patio looking at the stars. The desert was silent except for the occasional coyote call. In the distance, I thought about the woman I'd been 5 years ago, standing in my old kitchen, face burning from Vanessa's slap, making the decision to call the police, terrified but determined, hurt but unwilling to accept more hurt. That woman had saved me. Not some future version of myself, not therapy or time or distance. That woman in that moment drawing a line and saying no more. Everything else, the lawsuit, the conviction, the settlement, the move to Arizona, the years of healing had flowed from that one moment of standing up for myself. I'd learned something crucial. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're not selfish or vindictive or small. Boundaries are how we protect what matters. They're how we survive people who would drain us dry if we let them. And sometimes, loving someone means refusing to enable their worst impulses. It means letting them face consequences. It means walking away even when they're begging you to stay. Caleb had learned that too. He'd chosen to refuse Vanessa's deathbed manipulation, knowing it would haunt him, but doing it anyway, because it was right. Because some debts don't need to be paid. Some guilt doesn't need to be answered. The stars wheeled overhead in their ancient patterns. Somewhere in the house, Emma started fussing, and I heard Caleb's low voice soothing her back to sleep. Life was good. Not perfect. Never perfect. I still had days where anxiety spiked for no reason. Still had moments where I replayed that awful morning and wondered if I could have handled it differently. Still felt the ghost of guilt sometimes, whispering that a better person would have been more forgiving. But mostly I just felt grateful. Grateful for second chances. Grateful for therapy and friends and roses that bloomed in the desert. Grateful for a son who'd learned from his mistakes. Grateful for a granddaughter who'd never know the chaos that almost destroyed her father. Grateful to be standing here, alive and whole and free. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of sage and creosote. My roses rustled in the breeze. Inside, the house was warm with the presence of people I loved who loved me back without conditions or manipulation. This was the victory, not Vanessa's conviction or her death. This peace, this ordinary, precious peace. I'd spent years waiting for closure, for some final moment when everything would make sense and the pain would be gone. But closure wasn't an event. It was a choice I made every day. To focus on what I'd built instead of what I'd lost. To celebrate survival instead of mourning what was stolen. The hardest battles really are fought against the people we once loved. But on the other side of those battles, if we're lucky and strong and stubborn enough to survive, there's a life waiting. Maybe not the life we planned. Maybe not the life we wanted, but a life nonetheless. Real and messy and ours. I'd found mine in an Arizona desert, in a small house with a big garden, with roses that bloomed impossible colors in impossible heat. And that, I'd discovered, was enough. More than enough. It was everything.